Hello? Uh, Hello?
All right, you could begin.
Hello?
Hi, yes, you could begin your presentation now.
Okay, so here, Mark.
Yes.
Okay. Um, Good day. My name is Ronald Hassan Ali, and my group members include Tiffany Romani and Charisma Beechan. Today we'll be presenting our lecture on courage and moral leadership. The objectives today are the definition of courage and moral leadership, what leaders do to make things go wrong, acting like a moral leader, becoming a moral leader, three circles of moral courage, different types of leadership, leadership courage. How does courage apply to moral leadership? What is courage and moral leadership? In leadership, courage and moral are the following: your ability to analyze and understand yourself, reflect on your consciousness, determine your ethical viewpoint on right and wrong, understand what the most important thing matters to you in the world, understand what the most important thing matters in the world are, and determine your level of courage for what you believe in. Okay. Does anyone know who these people are in these pictures? If not, that is fine. I'm going to assume you silence me and you do not know. Okay. So to the left, we have 4-star General Eric Shinseki. In the middle, we have the U.S. Secretary of Defense. This is Donald Rumsfeld. And to the right, we have the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Paul Wolfowitz. During General Eric Shinke's career in the military, he made a simple yet controversial statement on the impending war in Iraq. During a hearing involving the U.S. Senate Armed Service Committee, he stated that retaining order in post-war Iraq would require several 100,000 soldiers. This simple statement contradicted what his civilian boss, Donald Rumsfeld, told senators. Instead, Rumsfeld tried to sway Congress into believing that the ground forces required would be low. Both Rumsfeld and Paul Wolfowitz, which was the Deputy Secretary of Defense, rejected the statements made by Shinseki at the time. A year before the end of his service, Shinseki was replaced, and Wolfowitz orchestrated this. To further demonstrate their disgust, Rumsfeld nor Wolfowitz breached protocol by abstaining from Shinseki's retirement ceremony. Years later, 6 safely retired generals displayed uncertainty with Rumsfeld's vision. This caused him to resign. Oh, my bad. Okay. What is courage and moral leadership? When understanding the line between right and wrong, a person possesses moral responsibility, choosing to act or behave morally. In this instance, Eric Shinseki courageously demonstrated his moral responsibility by choosing to speak up against his higher ups to avoid unneeded casualties while accepting the backlash of his actions. A leader demonstrates courageousness and confidence and is committed to their purpose. Real leaders understand themselves, what morals they stand for, and have the courage to act on them. Would you describe Shinseki as a real leader and courageous? This is a general question. Well, to me, at the height of his career, Shinseki chose not to be a leader that led people. Instead, he chose to honor his responsibility and became a leader that served the people or his fellow soldiers. He placed his head on the chopping block to place others ahead of himself. Selflessness is vital in leadership, including business, politics, education, social services, and sports. Okay. According to Wang Li, 2019, moral leadership is defined as a leader's behavior that demonstrates superior virtues, self-discipline, and unselfishness, and it entails setting up examples for others about the rightness or wrongness of particular actions. Over the last decade, many business-related misconducts within highly respected corporations harbored dishonesty, fraud, and selfishness. I believe most of you should be aware of the images in front of you. Yes? No? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Okay.
recognize the Zuck.
Okay. Who do we have to the left? Anybody?
Jack Warner.
Okay, gracias.
Mr. Oxymoda.
Okay, yeah. So we have to the left we have the former FIFA Vice President Jack Warner, who was involved in racketeering, corruption, and money laundering. To the right, we have the CEO Mark Zuckerberg. In 2018, Cambridge Analytica was accused of acquiring and saving the data of millions of Facebook users without them knowing. Because of this, he was struck a $5 billion fine. And well, I believe this is a telltale company. You should basically know who this is. Unethical practices may result in significant consequences for any organization, since it makes the company vulnerable to many tribulations in the future. Some effects of unethical practices can be employees losing their trust, resulting in efficient performance. Employee application rates will decrease, resulting in inefficient performance. Employee application rates will decrease, and customers will lose faith or trust, thus costing the organization business. An example of unethical business practice within an organization is Uber. In 2017, senior members of the service were accused of sexual harassment. This also includes the CEO of the company, Travis Kalanick. Kalanick was accused of hiding unethical behavior in his company. Later that same year in 2017, he resigned due to this. Uber then later hired a new CEO. This was to change the old culture and get the company back on track. The leader of an organization will set the standard for the employees. This being said, all the actions performed by a leader must be of high ethical standing, since it will determine how future leaders will manage that organization. Being a leader is difficult since the pressure is high, and every decision must be thoroughly deliberated. Ethical standards must be at the forefront of every business decision. It is rather easy to cross lines that should not be crossed to meet deadlines and satisfy personal interests. It, however, is not easy to deal with the consequences of those actions. Okay, there's a next company that I'm not sure if many of you would know about. To possess integrity, it means to upkeep one's ethical view and do the right or noble thing. However, some leaders lack integrity, which can have a trickle effect on the organization, creating an environment of dishonesty and selfishness. An example of a loss of integrity can be Enron, where the senior executives were blatantly dishonest, greedy, bent rules, and just were dishonest for their interests, for their own personal interests. Many Enron employees hid their unethical behavior and just followed along like sheep, just to achieve their personal interests. Some leaders, they can be seen as villains to an extent, determined to only achieve their success through unethical means, disregarding what would be best for their organization and its employees. These leaders have little to no care for mass unemployment and their crumbling organizations, since their only focus is on maintaining their status as top executives and earning a fat paycheck. Lying can impact your leadership skills. This would go along with what leaders do to make things go wrong. Lying can impact your leadership skills, making others see you as untrustworthy and encouraging those you lead to lie. Leaders seen as dishonest cannot fulfill their responsibilities to their organization and their employees or customers. A question for the class is, has anyone ever lied about a score they made in a game? It could be an online game, badminton, football, golf, anything. Just a simple lie to anybody.
I mean, probably, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering. What if I told you that dishonesty could move past your recreational activities into your business or ethical standards? In today's world, it is common to hear of people who lack business experience climbing the ranks. Within an organization, while someone with more experience goes unnoticed, this is usually caused by the bias of unethical leadership. An unethical leader can be seen as someone who strives for his own goals. He has little to no care to see others attain success. These types of leaders um, tend to take the accomplishment from others. However, when things go wrong, they place the blame on others very quickly. To promote a positive work environment of good morals, leaders must speak out against corruption and poor behavior. Furthermore, a leader who does not address issues and keeps quiet about unethical practices in his organization is also encouraging a poor work environment. For instance, if you're out with a group and they choose to make distasteful jokes about special needs, even though you may stay quiet and ignore their behavior, this can be seen as condoning their behavior. Acting like a moral leader. According to Henry Ford, for a long time, people believed that the only purpose of the industry was to make a profit, and they are wrong. Its purpose is to serve the general welfare. To be a leader, one must not only look at their organizational performance, such as profit and loss. A well rounded leader must understand values such as honesty, fair judgment, and frugality. In the case of an organization, leaders are always being observed, and employees practice their actions. One of the key paths being a leader is to inspire good behavior in others within your organization and to create a place where ethical and moral values are understood and practiced. An example of moral leadership is Alfred P. West, founder and CEO of SEI Investments, who prefers to be equal to his employees rather than living an extravagant life like most CEOs. He believes that employees will make ethical choices and practice fairness if open information is allowed. Open information is the ability to share and access information freely, allowing for transparency. Continuing with acting like a moral leader, there are many ways a leader can develop an environment where the ethical standard is thoroughly practiced. It can range from rewarding ethical conduct to showing disciplinary actions toward ethical misconduct. Companies are starting to adopt various strategies to encourage ethical leadership. The CEO of Boeing Company Co., Jim Nerney, is utilizing a program that rewards managers' ethical leadership by associating it with compensation. Additionally, other companies have emphasized the need for proper ethical standards by providing specific policies in their code of ethics. That's who this person is, by the way. Jim McNerney from Boeing. Moving on. Okay. A leader is judged based on their work ethic and how they conduct their personal lives. A leader's personal life must also display a form of professionalism. reflecting their ethical and moral capabilities. A poor image can affect a leader's professional life. Example, as the image you can see, Mike Price, who was recently accepted as the new University of Alabama's football coach. However, he was fired before he could coach his first game. During a golf tournament Mike participated in, shortly after receiving or accepting his new role, he made immoral decisions such as tipping an exotic dancer, spending hundreds on alcohol, and cheating on his wife. Yes. Instead of immoral indulgence, a leader must develop a culture of serving society. For example, Jeffrey Swartz, the CEO of, well, he clearly has it in front of him. I believe most of you know this brand, Timberland. He has been creating a successful organization by serving his employees and society. Timberland hosts a yearly nonprofit organization for young people to gain public service, and the employees partake in paid volunteer activities. A leader must practice good morals and ethics within and outside his professional life. Okay, now I'll be passing you on to the next person. I believe that's Tiffany.
Hi, could everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm Tiffany, and I'll be starting with becoming a moral leader. True leadership is moral authority, not formal authority. Leadership is a choice, not a position. The choice is to follow universal timeless principles, which will build trust and respect for the entire organization. Those with formal authority alone will lose this trust and respect. This was a quote from, as the picture is showing, Stephen Covey. So leadership. Does anybody know exactly what it means? Based on what Renard went through. Well, when some people hear the word leader or leadership, they immediately think of someone in power, part of a hierarchy or senior in an organization. However, that is not the case. So on the next slide, you'll see a quote by Bill Gates, who many of us know is the founder of Microsoft. And he says, as we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others. Hence, leaders are not those who are in power, but one who has many followers, because they have a strong influence over others. This kind of power can be used for either good or evil, to build an organization or to tear it down. Moral leadership, therefore, is the leader's ability to differentiate between right and wrong, establishing ideal virtues, selflessness, and motivates others to do the same. They build people up instead of tearing them down. Since leaders have such a powerful hold on their followers, a moral leader can encourage others to make a difference in a positive aspect. Moral leaders are conscious of their goals and values and live by them regardless of the obstacles they may face. Next slide. An example of a moral leader, as anybody who's into Marvel or Sherlock Holmes may know this guy in the picture, Benedict Cumberbatch, and he is most famously known as his role for Doctor Strange. His moral compass influences him to dedicate his life to advocate for equal pay between men and women, not just in his personal work life, but in society, and he encourages others to do the same. He stands by his morality, whereby he stated, if she is not paid the same as the men, I'm not doing it. This goes to show the selflessness of moral leaders, whereby they are highly motivated by their own morality and stands by it and tries to encourage others to do the same regardless of the repercussions. Next slide. The moral development is a major factor in a moral's ability to make moral choices. Lawrence Kohlberg's moral development model illustrates the 3 levels of personal moral development. Level 1 is the pre-conventional morality, Level 2, the conventional morality, and Level 3, the post-conventional morality. With respect to the pre-conventional morality, it is moral reasoning based on reward and punishment. At this level, which starts from childhood at approximately 3 to 7 years and can sometimes go up to age 9, Children are not aware of morality, and their moral beliefs and values are influenced by the adult figures in their lives or based on punishment and reward. Therefore, they will obey their authority figures and their rulers and actions to avoid being punished. To simplify, they will be programmed in such a way that if they are punished for something, then it's bad, and if they are rewarded, then it's good. Conventional morality. This is moral reasoning based on external ethics. This occurs between ages 8 to 13 years. At this stage, acceptance of social rules with respect to right and wrong occur. Adolescents will start to adopt the moral standards of the role models they begin to idolize. They start to internalize the values and opinions and their authority figures, but they do not question it because they view it as a norm of the society they are growing up in, and will blindly adhere to the rules of said culture. For instance, if the rules of their culture is to be humble, kind, supportive, and good natured, they will obey these rules. However, if their society says to lie, cheat, or steal, they will do so without question because of society's influence. And lastly, post-conventional morality. Moral reasoning based on personal ethics. This occurs at adulthood. It can be characterized by the individual's perception of the society's ethical principles. Their opinions are based on their own personal principles, and their morality is based on a person's rights and justice. Individuals at this age also disobey rules if they don't align with their level of morality, regardless of society's expectations, and is seen as a leader who is focused on a bigger goal and purpose. According to Kohlberg, only at least 20% of individuals can reach this level, because many individuals prefer to agree and follow the majority compared to thinking independently and following their own moral compass. Based on these explanations, do you think you fall into the 20% or is something holding you back? Next slide. Next, we have the 3 circles of moral courage. But does anybody have any idea what moral courage means? If you don't, that's fine. So, in the words of Leonardo da Vinci, a famous painter, he who does not punish evil commands it to be done. Therefore, according to Rushworth Kidder, moral courage can be defined as doing what is right despite the risk of mockery, criticism, job loss, punishment, etc. In order for one to have moral courage, he must be able to rise above adversity without fear, shame, or cynicism. Skinner believes moral courage occurs at the intersection of 3 domains. So, next slide. You'll see the 3 domains. So there'll be principles, a commitment to your own morality, danger, awareness of risk involved with this commitment, and endurance, the willingness to withstand the risks. So under principles, when a decision must be made, it is a leader's job to evaluate the situation and establish whether or not moral courage is required and the values which need to be maintained. Kidder believes that one must consider at most 2 essential values that will fit the situation while leading with moral courage. For instance, Kidder used an example of human resources manager who, while working on the company's budget, realized that the boss made a purchase of champagne for his daughter's wedding to the company. Regardless of the consequences, the HR manager brought her concerns to light because her principles and level of morality did not allow her to keep quiet. Danger. This part of the circle is based on evaluating the level of risk involved based on one's moral choices. Moral leaders must think about any obstacles or harmful consequences that may be a result of their actions, as well as weigh the risks versus the reward. That is, if their decision to stand by the morals and principles is worth the backlash they may receive. Moreover, leaders also don't want to miscalculate the risk, which can be more minimal than anticipated. And endurance. At this stage, the leader has evaluated the situation, considered the values required depending on the situation, and the risks weighed. But if they don't have the courage or endurance required to take action, all consideration and preparation will be null and void. A true leader requires confidence to put their plans into action without fear of consequences, and they are only concerned about what is best for the majority. This confidence can be found in several areas, such as the strength of their morality, values, and purpose, their level of skill, understanding, and experience, their beliefs and faith in something greater, and their gut feelings that their decision is what is best in said situation. So on the next slide, we'll see different types of leaders. Every individual has their own various sets of moral values, views and opinions, and ways of thinking. Therefore, every leader will have their own specific way of leading others. In society, everyone has the ability to be a leader based on their morals and values. In organizations, there is said to be 4 stages of leadership. So the first one, you'll see authoritarian leader. After will be participative leader. Then stage 3 is stewardship leader, and stage 4 is servant leader. So we'll start with the authoritarian leader. The next slide. So this is also known as autocratic or direct management leadership. They affirm power and authority. They are the decision makers, and the decisions these leaders make are final. Therefore, they expect submission from their peers without question. Establishment with this method of leadership is highly organized. Everyone has a defined role and responsibility. However, workers or followers have no voice and are not given final say in the decision-making process. Bill Gates is also another example of an authoritarian leader. He had a clear and defined vision for his company, even though he was criticized and doubted. Because no one had faith in what he was trying to create, he was not able to entrust his team in the decision-making process. Hence, he made all the decisions on his own and directed his team on exactly what was required of them. As all leadership styles, there are the positives and the negatives. So we'll start with the advantages. So you can have new employees, rapid decision making, and limit employee stress. So with the new employees, this method can be highly effective if the work staff are new and inexperienced and requires guidance and directions on exactly what they must do. Rapid decision making. Since all the decisions are placed on one person, meetings and discussions are not required, and the leader does not have to wait on feedback from other members before a decision can be made. Limit employee stress. Because all the decisions are placed on one person, the employees, especially if they have complete trust in their leader, does not have to worry or have the stress of making decisions that can make or break their company or organization, and this can lead to more efficient work staff. Disadvantages. High dependency. Since all the decisions are made by only one person and the leader is responsible for guiding the team members become very dependent on their leader and will tend to lose the ability to think or make decisions for themselves and their organizations. Employee resentment. When individuals, especially those with a strong moral compass, are unable to have a voice or partake in decision making, especially when they know their ideas can be beneficial to their establishment, they will tend to resent their leader and their work environment, and this can lead to more employees leaving the company. Stressed leader. Authoritarian leaders are responsible for making all the decisions, but eventually this can take a toll on a person because the weight of all the choices are falling onto them. Consequently, being in charge of a big company or project tends to be very stressful because if only one wrong decision is made, it can lead to dire consequences, and the leader alone will be faced with the repercussions because they are the ones who made the decision. Next, we have the participative leaders, also known as democratic leaders. They are completely opposite to the authoritarians. They are open-minded and encourage participation among their team members, allowing them to make decisions while listening and taking their opinions into consideration. They encourage engagement, think freely, and the followers can be as creative as they can be, as well as motivating them throughout the process. An example of a participative leader is Jack Stoll, the president of A drink I'm sure plenty people drink on a daily basis, Coca-Cola. He was enlightened on the importance of being a participative leader, whereby he delegated responsibilities and decision making to his team, as opposed to taking on all the decisions himself. And he was able to bring his company higher profitability by only working with the finer details of any task at the company, while also taking a step back where he saw essential. And again, every leadership has advantages and disadvantages. So the advantages: harmony among team. By allowing team members to work together, be creative, and participate in decision making, it influences them to be more collaborative compared to competitive, because they can bounce ideas off of each other in order to build the organization and come to a decision as a whole, as compared to taking on their own individual roles and competing against one another. Stress-free leader. All the decision making is not falling onto solely one person. Therefore, this allows for a more laissez-faire environment, and a leader can make more efficient and progressive organization because everyone's values and opinions are taken into consideration, and the leader is not stressed or tasked with the responsibility of making all the decisions. More effective problem solving. If there are any hindrance or challenges faced within the establishment, team members are allowed to give their opinions or generate problem-solving ideas together and decide one sole decision which will be best for the company and solve the problem. Disadvantages. You can have a multitude of opinions. With everyone allowed to give their own views and opinions, there can be chaos because there are too many ideas to consider, and it can lead to jealousy or frustration among members if one person's ideas is chosen compared to another. Efficient team members. If the members of the team or organization are not completely literate, informed, or organized, it can be difficult for them to be creative, properly understand their roles, or generate ideas on what is best for the company, and it can hinder progression. Hence, this is where authoritarian leaders will be superior because these members require guidance. Time consuming. With everyone making decisions, it will take time to generate ideas, with each person having varying points of view. Time must also be taken to consider which idea is best for the situation at hand. Next, we have stewardship leaders. Julia Cocard, publisher of a book entitled Stewardship Leadership, a Maturational Perspective, defines stewardship leadership as a type of leadership that concentrates on others, the community, and the greater society as opposed to itself. This means that these leaders are responsible for serving their team members. They care for their team members, society, and organization instead of trying to control them, and are focused on expanding their organization's mission, vision, and values. These leaders wholly trust their team, allowing them to adapt to their roles and responsibilities in order to aid in the organization's growth. Overall, in stewardship, the leaders are considered the team as opposed to the leader themselves. So next we have the 4 principles which provide a framework for stewardship. The first principle, the principle of ownership. They reorient towards a partnership assumption. Partnership can only be built if the leader no longer has full power and control, but it instead shifts to the team members. The team is free to agree and disagree on each other's ideas, be open and honest with each other, openly share information and project ideas together, and admit to any problem or obstacles faced without feeling compelled to hide it from the group. Moreover, each member is responsible for goal and vision of the organization, as well as any potential outcomes, whether positive or negative. The principle of accountability. Localize decisions and power to those closest to the work and the customer. The power to make decisions for the group should fall solely on one person responsible for the work being done. To illustrate, the team member who is in charge of or managing a certain aspect of the project or business is the only one with the final say on how certain things should be done in order to get the job done. The principle of reward. Recognize and reward the value of labor. One of the most important ways to motivate your team is by reward. This in turn determines the overall future success of the organization. If a person does not feel like what they do matters, they will not find any motivation to progress in any area of the job. Stewardship supports sharing their fortune in order to compensate the team members for all their hard work where they see fit. Everyone in the organization is valued and appropriately rewarded for their efforts. The principle of responsibility. Expect core work teams to build the organization. The team members who are at the center of the organization define the goals responsible for organizational success, creating a fostering environment, and can face any obstacles faced are the ones solely responsible for the growth and success of the establishment. Stewardship leaders guide the organization instead of being the sole decision maker or exerting their power over their team members. Everyone has a voice and are freely allowed to express their views, ideas, and opinions in order to progress in their roles and aid in a successful organization. Next, we have the servant leaders. Good leaders must first become good servants. And in the picture, that is Robert K. Greenleaf. So in servant leadership, these leaders' main responsibility is to be of service to the employees, customers, shareholders, and the citizens. These leaders believe that their main purpose is to serve, whereby if they offer a service, they are building character. So they are aiding individuals in growing and exceeding the expectation of themselves. Robert Greenleaf, from the picture, founder of the modern servant leadership movement, and the Greenleaf Center for Servant Leadership states, the servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first, meaning a servant leader's main focus is on the development and well-being of the people and organization they are responsible for. They share power, put others' needs above their own, and helps them to build their skills and talents. So we have Greenleaf's servant leadership model on the next slide. So it has 4 basic principles. Put service before self-interest. This means that servant leaders choose to use their skills and talents to build other people up and help to reach their potentials, as opposed to themselves, because their desire to see others succeed eclipses their own personal appeal for power and authority. They feel satisfaction when they help others accomplish their goals, whether or not they are rewarded for their efforts. Listen first to affirm others. Instead of making decisions and giving orders, the servant leader asks questions. They listen to their members to properly understand any issues being faced and how the team expects to solve it to ensure they are capable of being the one in control. By listening and allowing others to be the problem solvers, this leader can then figure out the best way to face these issues. Inspire trust by being trustworthy. These leaders acquire the trust of others by practicing what they preach. In other words, they do exactly what they say they're going to do. They also engage trust by being open and honest with their members, relinquishing control and focusing on the well-being of others. This trust is also built by trusting their team to be the decision makers, and the only decisions they make are for the benefit of the group. Nourish others and help them become whole. These leaders care about the growth of their team, mind, body, and soul. They believe in fostering others so they can make positive changes in the world. Servant leaders tend to be vulnerable and share their own struggles and hardships with others, so they can learn from their experiences and not have to go through the same difficulties. Based on these explanations, consider which leader you would like to be. I'll now pass you on to Karishma.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will be presenting on leadership courage. So without courage, leadership cannot exist. But in most workplaces and educational institutions, people just tend to do whatever it takes to fit in and be part of the organization, which means that they adapt to the organization's culture, even though it may entail not having any courage at all. And we'll also talk about the nature of the leadership, and we'll talk about nature of leadership, courage, and how it is expressed in the organization. Courage is both a moral and a practical matter for leaders, and a lack of courage is what allows greed and self-interest to conquer the concern for the common good. Courage is the ability to step forward through fear. It is not the absence of doubt or fear. Can anyone name some of their fears? No? Okay. Some of my fears are the fear of rejection or the fear of loss. And it is normal to feel fear because there's something to lose or risk, such as acceptance or losing your reputation or your job or whatever it is.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Does like a phobia count?
Sorry?
When you said like to list a fear, does phobias count?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, what about arachnophobia?
Yes, it does count, but I was more hoping for like something along the lines of fear of rejection.
Oh, okay. What about fear of failure?
Yes. Fear of failing in school. It's normal to feel fear because you have something to lose, right? You don't want to fail your courses or whatever you were talking about, right? So courage is
Yeah.
accepting responsibility, and it encourages leaders create opportunities to make a difference in their organizations. On to the next slide, please. Courage means stepping outside of your comfort zone, and it also means non-conformity. A courageous leader has to break traditions and boundaries in order to initiate change in an organization. Courage means asking for what you want and saying what you want and what you believe, because leaders must speak up about what they think so that they can initiate change. Courage means fighting for what you believe in. Next slide, please. So, how does courage apply to moral leadership? To become a moral leader, one must be able to display personal courage. Therefore, the leader must know all their strengths and weaknesses and also be nonconformist. Moral leadership means building relationships and making yourself vulnerable. A moral leader must also be able to become a whistleblower. And whistleblowing is basically the disclosure of illegal or immoral or unethical practices within the organization. So whistleblowers know that they will suffer emotionally and financially if they speak about certain activities within the organization. However, despite the fear and emotions, they speak up, showing that they are nonconformist and courageous as well. So let's talk about how we can find personal courage. There are many ways you can find personal courage. Some of these are committing to what you believe in, connecting with others, embracing your failures and learning from them, and also channeling your anger and frustration. Personal courage comes from fighting for what you truly believe in. So, believing in a higher purpose. Leaders who have a strong emotional commitment to a larger purpose or vision tend to push through their fears. And they also draw strength from others. So leaders who genuinely care about their colleagues and co-workers, they will take certain risks in order for their colleagues to succeed and grow in the organization. And being a part of a supportive team will reduce the fear of failure and help persons to take risks and which they wouldn't normally take without the support of their colleagues. On to the next slide, please. So to wrap up our presentation, I would like to leave you with a quote from Walt Disney. It is important to have a good hard failure when you're young. This basically means accepting failure will encourage your personal courage and will also help you step forward because you have accepted the worst possible outcome of a situation. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so if there's no questions, here are some of our references